I always love it when the Summit Ferry shows up. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about. It's that it's that box. You just, it says to thank you for your order, and it usually says Summit real big on the side. This one's a little bit smaller. Then it comes with that, that paper receipt that used to be done on a dot matrix printer, and then at some point you know, they switched to the one that's printed out. Anyways, we got stuff. Um, this isn't a big deal, but I am going to put the windshield washer back in it. I just thought it would look neat under the hood to have that. So that means I got to move my coolant recovery tank, so I got a narrower one, and so I'll get to doing that stuff later. This is what this is about, though, and since the most popular video that I ever did, which I did on a whim in 2 minutes, was about proportioning valves and how to reset them. And apparently, proportioning valve tripping is a real big thing because that video's got like 60,000 views, which was never my intent. I never intend to grow my channel. That's not my thing. I just do this because I like to share. And maybe you guys get a little bit of entertainment out of it. I'm not exactly Mr. Personality, but I like to have fun doing this. So, anyways, this is a new proportioning valve for the Mustang. This is a PV2, by the way. There is the PV4 and the PV2. As if I could stop flopping around with this thing. From CPP, or Classic Performance Parts. There we go. That only took an act of God. The PV4 is simply for four-wheel disc brakes. So that one does not have a residual valve on it. The PV2 has a residual valve. If you don't know what a residual valve is, I'm gonna explain you. Let's make sure we get the Prop 65 warning in there. Just California compliance. So this is a PV2 proportioning valve. I actually had one of these. It's the one that I used in the video. It was on the truck. It is the same. These things are so cheap, though. I just don't. Why would I use one that's been sitting in my attic for 5 years or however long it's been sitting up there? I don't know how good the seals are, so I just figured I'd just get a new one because it's a real bitch to change it on the Mustang. It's not like I could have quickly popped the old one in there, or the one that's been sitting around for a while and then swapped it. It's just a bitch to get to it. So I did go ahead and buy a new one. Like I said, the PV2 has a residual valve, and what a residual valve does, and I don't think I explained this in the last video, was it holds about 10 psi of pressure on the rear brakes because they're drum. So that makes the rear brakes drag a little bit, except not really. It keeps the rear brakes in contact with the drum, but not engaged. And that's simply to keep it so when you press the brakes, the drums don't take time to engage. It keeps them as close to an adjustment as possible. So it keeps about 10 psi on here, which is nothing. Your brakes are anywhere from 900 psi to 1200 psi. The truck, it's got a hydro boost on it. It's up in the 1100, 1200 psi range just because it needs it. This is probably a little bit lower. But anyways, yeah, so that it just barely keeps any pressure on there. And so anyways, the residual valve on the Mustang is leaking. There's some sort of a relief valve, and I noticed that this doesn't have it. I thought it had something to do with the residual valve and how it relieves the pressure, except for the 10 psi. Looks like they've done away with that on this. It's not on here. So at any rate, we're just going to change this out, and it's a headache to do. You get the two front brakes right here, inlets from the master cylinder right here, and then of course your rear outlet right there. The very first thing I like to do with these before I install them is take the brake light warning switch out and put the tool in it. So if I don't do it now, I'm probably going to forget to do it, and then I'm going to go to bleed the brakes, and I'm going to trip the proportioning valve. And if you don't know what that is, go look at my proportioning valve video. It explains all that. But I always put this in, and you don't want to forget to take this out too. You can't leave this in here. You have to have the warning light switch in there or nothing. It's good. You need to have this in there though because it keeps stuff from getting inside of there. But you can't leave this in here because the valve will never trip. It'll stay centered all the time. So if you have a leak, it's not going to trip and it's not going to shut off the leak. So you can't leave this in here. It's just for bleeding the brakes, because when you bleed the brakes, you have an intentional leak and you don't want it to trip and stop it from bleeding. That's why you put that tool in there. So let's get under the hood and we're going to change this thing. Most likely the most inconvenient proportioning valve to change. It's just not in a good place to get to it. You got to get 5 different lines hooked up to it because you got 2 front, 2 master, and 1 rear. And it's on its side, it's underneath, it's behind the shock tower. It's just the worst. You know, the truck, I could change it in 2 minutes. This thing, it's going to take who knows how long to get to it. But it's got to be done. I don't really see the value in taking the master cylinder or anything out of the car because you have to disconnect the lines one way or another. So I'm just kind of, I guess you only have to take 3 lines out if you take the whole master out of the car. So maybe I'll do that. But yeah, I got to think about this one for a minute because if I remember correctly, you can't get the master out without taking the booster out because there's not enough room to move the master forward, or I don't remember. You might be able to get it off with the bracket, but that means you got to disconnect the master from the proportioning valve. So what I'm talking about is I can't just take this off. I take this off, take this bracket off, I've got to disconnect the master. So one way or another, you're hooking up 5 lines inside the car. There's really no way to put this in as a unit and only hook up 3 lines, 2 fronts and 1 rear. So I'm just going to fight with this and get it out of here. Well, that was less hard to get out than it will be to get back in. I just want to show you real quick where it's leaking from. See this relief valve right here? That's where it's leaking from. And I was able to get my head underneath the car and see it because this thing sits in there like this. So anyways, I'm going to get the new one. I don't want to lose a bunch of fluid out of the master, although it looks like it's back checking. It's not leaking. But I want to get these lines onto the new one. We'll leave them loose because this isn't going to line up quite right. You want to do that. I was able to take it off that way because obviously it was already lined up when it was in there, but we want to leave these loose, get it all lined up, tighten these up. 1 bolt in the back here on this style, I have to leave the bolt in there, otherwise you got to take the bracket out. So I just kind of dropped this out from underneath it. So we'll just get the new one hooked up here. Well, it's in. That was a downhill battle. I don't know why everybody says it's an uphill battle. You ever tried walking downhill? It's hard. Anyways, it's all sealed up there. I haven't decided if I'm going to throw my pressure bleeder on it, which is kind of a pain, or if I'm just going to have a friend help me, but it needs to be bled. These lines are just too hard to get to here, so I'm probably going to just bleed it all the way to the rear instead of trying to get most of the air out up here. It's usually pretty beneficial to do that, try and get the air out, you know, at the master cylinder or at the proportioning valve, but it's just too hard to crack these lines open and close. I'm afraid I'm going to round one of them off, even with the flare nut wrenches. I should have mentioned that if you're new to this, you do not work on brake lines unless you've got a set of flare nut wrenches, and these are flare nut wrenches. You do not use open end wrenches. You will round them, and then you're going to be screwed, and then you're going to be using a vice grip, like, you know, a lot of people do, I guess. So that's not where you want to be. You want a good set of flare nut wrenches. So anyways, we'll get it bled and it should all be right in the world again. And again, like I said, don't forget to put the brake light switch back in there. Do not leave the tool in the block. But yeah, there it is right there. It was leaking out of there. I'm not quite sure what that relief does, but the new one doesn't appear to have it. Well, while we're waiting to bleed the brakes, I went ahead and did the useless thing and put the washer bag back in it. Didn't have one when I bought it. I'm sure it was long rotted out. Got rid of the plastic coolant tank because this car is slowly becoming better than that, and put a Summit 10-inch by 2-inch stainless one in, which should be more than big enough for this car. So that's pretty nice. I just bolted that right to the radiator, drilled a couple holes in it. So anyways, yeah, I bought a new pump for it. It's down there, bag, picked all the parts up on Summit. It's that whole, and you guys know what I'm talking about. It's that whole, I need one thing from Summit, so I want to get over $100, so I don't pay $10 for shipping, so I end up spending $50 instead of $10. You guys know what I'm talking about. We actually have a little troubleshooting to do. So I powered it up, and I'm not hearing the pump run. The wipers work, but I'm not hearing the pump run. So I don't know if it's not getting power, probably because I can't hear it. Or if it's clogged, the nozzles. I got new nozzles and stuff for it, but I just figured, I'll just plug it in where it was. But yeah, it's not working. So let's dig into it. Well, according to my $50 Mac Tools test light, we don't have any power. So I use the test light because it's the easiest thing. I'm a lone guy today. So hooked it up to where I suspect, I tried both of them, but I know which one's the power on the connector for the pump. That's the connector for the pump right there, if you don't know, that one with the test light sticking out of it. And the one that's insulated is going to be the hot, I'm sure. But pulled out the wiper switch, which is how you actuate it, and nothing. There's no power. So I could do two things. I could trace this out, or I could just get the schematic. I'm a schematic kind of a guy. It just makes it easier. So let's get the Ford service manual, which I've got, and take a look and see what feeds it. So it's interesting looking at this. The 2-speed seems to only apply to Falcon and Fairlane, but I know the Mustang has it. The pony cars certainly had 2-speed with a windshield washer, but it doesn't show it. It doesn't show the Mustang at all in here. Actually, I can't find it. I've gone through this schematic, so it doesn't matter. This is already kind of pointing me in the right direction. I can see that it's got 2-speed right here. For the Falcon and Fairlane, it's probably very similar. It shows a little bit different connector, but it does show that it's fused. I'd be willing to bet if I go under there and look, there's probably a fuse. What happened, I'm sure, is this thing is probably long seized up from sitting forever, and somebody went to turn it on, probably. It might even been me. And obviously it's probably seized up and it probably just blew the fuse, or it's shorted or something. So I took the old one out, and I think I probably threw it away, so I can't check it to see. But we'll just go underneath, see if we can't find a fuse for it. Well, I started chasing it down, and I pulled the switch out and started looking at it and put it back together. And now, well, look at what happens when I pull the... See, you see the light on there? It's kind of hard to tell, I guess. See, when I pull it out, pulling it out engages the power for the pump. Now, I did notice what causes the pump to cycle, it looks like, is the speed of the motor. Looking at the schematic, it looks like the motor opens and closes the ground. So as the motor's turning, it's should be hitting the pump. So hopefully that switch inside of the motor is not bad, because if the switch in the motor is bad, that sucks. That means the motor's got to be replaced. So I don't know. We'll hook it back up and see. Maybe it's just because it's slow. It's a slow cycle. Maybe it's taking a little bit to get the squirter to work. All right. So I plugged it back in and I turned it on and it started squirting. So, and it's pretty slow. It's kind of at the rate that it pumps, and the squirters are bad. You'll see here, but so if I pull it out, see, pretty lame, but hey, it works. All right, change the nozzles. It's real easy to do. It's just a couple screws. I'll show you in a second, but here's how pretty lame these are. And I guess, it is 1966 technology, but anyways, there. I got that one working pretty good. It squirts nice up on the windshield. That'll actually probably do some good. But yeah, this one's pretty lame. I might try and aim that up a little bit more, but I think the pressure's just too low. It's a novelty. I mean, come on. So here's the nozzles. I promised you I'd show it. And yeah, it's just this one screw here, and then you can kind of bend these up and down as you want. And you aim it. You want to aim it through the cowl, obviously. There's one over there. What I discovered with this one, why it wasn't spraying, that one was shooting up really nice, and this one was just dribbling, is the new tee that came with the kit that had the bag and everything. It came with new hoses and stuff. you could just buy regular hose. But anyways, it came with everything. And the new tee, this was like blocked on the new tee with plastic. It just didn't get cleared well. So I just used the old tee. I took the new one and I took a drill bit and I cleaned it out. I could use it, but I had already put the old one back in, and it's working perfectly. So we got that all done. The washer bags right here, it's all filled up. I make my own windshield washer fluid here in California. I don't have to worry about it freezing, so I just use the tablets. New hose, new pump. So it just, it's just one more thing that's operating on here. And I'll give you a little tour of something else that I put in too. So I replaced the wiper switch. I was going to make my own intermittent delay wiper switch, and then I found out that I think Scott Drake sells one. The reviews are kind of okay on it, but it's better than me trying to build one. So when, obviously when the ignition's on, now instead of pulling it out to make the washers go, you push it in, and you can just release it, and it'll cycle it once or twice afterwards, and then it'll quit spraying. So this is the off position all the way here. This is intermittent, and as you turn this up, it's more frequent. So if you get all the way to here, it's every half second or something. You get all the way back here, it's every 5 seconds or 10 seconds or something. And then if you keep turning it to the right, that's slow, and that's fast, or speed 1, speed 2. So if I go backwards, speed 2, speed 1, intermittent area right here, and then off, and of course washer. So that's kind of neat. The washer, it works. It's not like today's cars where it just sprays up on the windshield. I could probably put a pump in that does that, but not going to. I also yanked the ammeter out. I am finally going to have it converted. I already shipped it out today to Rocket Man. It's some silly kind of name, but the guy definitely does some cool work. Rocket Man Innovations or something like that. RCC Innovations. Anyways, he does tachometer conversions, voltmeter to ammeter to voltmeter conversion. So you take your stock gauge, you send it to him, he puts a new movement in it basically, and he sends it back to you. I probably could have adapted it, but you know what? The guy charges $70 to take yours, convert it. I'm paying the extra 10. You can have it done for 60 and not change the face. For $70, he re-silk screens the face with voltage from 10 to 18 volts, I think, is what the range is on it. So that's off, getting done by him. I think his name is Bob. And that'll be back, I think he estimates around April 1st. So I'll put the dash back in. It sucks because I took the dash out. I had to take it out, but I want to be able to drive the car, so I had to put it all back together. But, that's just the way it rolls. So anyways, that's just, a quick couple of things. This kind of went random on us a little bit, somehow I slipped into doing the washer, windshield washer thing as well. But, it's kind of a cool thing to have. And my neighbor noticed right away. He walked over. He's a car guy too. And he saw under the hood and he goes, "Hey, what's that bag for? What's that bladder for?" And he said, "Oh, that's the original windshield washer." So he goes, "Well, it caught my eye right away. It looks neat." And I said, "Well, good." So it makes it look a little bit more original under the hood. So anyways, we'll wrap this one up.